So I want to go over what I've adapted as my peaking block for this year, a couple adjustments compared to last year, but this is a very similar template that I've used myself personally last year and now this year for how I peak for the Highland Games. And I've only done this once during the year. Last year would have been a better year for me comparatively, and I only did this phase or this structure once in a year, even though I typically try to have like a double peak, kind of one for the spring and one for the fall. The main one being the fall, that tends to be our bigger games. So this video's kind of been coming. I'm obviously gonna ramble along a little bit and kind of explain through my thoughts, processes on what it takes to peak. I feel like I did really well with it last year. We're about to see how it goes this year. I've been hurt all year with some nerve damage in my left leg. It's coming back. It's still not where I wish it would be at this point, but I'm gonna kind of probably wash this season and hopefully next year come back and throw better numbers. So this is obviously related more to the gym stuff, and I'll talk a little bit how I adapt the throwing in there first. So let's talk about the gym stuff first. For me, I kind of split my year into two competitive seasons, and I started this 14 weeks out from my final competition on the year. So I have 3 comps back to back in October, first 3 weekends in October. So we're gonna just say that I wanna throw big at all of them, but let's just say the very final one's gonna be my ultimate peak, being my last game of the season. I'm going to backtrack from there, or wherever I set my big peak last year. It was the Amateur Worlds in Minnesota was my big peak date, and I had games before that and after that. I think actually after it, so it would have been a little earlier. But I throw all year round in a fatigue state. I lift in the gym and practice all year round. So just some subtle adjustments will lead to bigger numbers. So let's talk about those adjustments. Up here, when I'm in a cluster phase, I do a cluster phase. I found that I really enjoy it. It also helps me stay on track with my workouts and also lets me get a lot done in a lot less time. It's been a way that I have enjoyed doing more volume with my lifts. So I'm not gonna give you a ton of percentages and numbers and stuff like that I follow, just kind of some structure to it. And I do the cluster stuff mainly with the squats. I've done it with some Olympic lifts as well. I haven't done it with deadlifts, and I've toyed with it with bench a little bit. I've actually cut back on bench pressing altogether. Just beats my shoulder ups more, or both shoulders up more, and I just don't care for it, even though it's probably arguably my best lift. So typically Olympic lifts, squat variation, and I could do it with a deadlift variation. I have not. I've kind of toyed with it a little bit here and there with some stuff. I was pulling clusters this year, but I ended up with some glute pain and pulling sumo, trying to do something a little different. So I shied away from that and have kind of dumped that as it kind of got lost in the wash, changed some different things up. So 2 weeks of clusters, week 1 and 2. And so this is the week counting out 14 weeks. This phase or micro cycle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, a 4-week phase here, then a 3-week phase, then a 4-week phase, then a 3-week phase. Kind of when you're planning out periodization, that's kind of how it fit for me, with a somewhat linear block or a step block. Increase for 3 weeks, deload week. So increase for 3, deload, increase for 3, increase for 4, deload, increase for 3. It doesn't work perfectly. You kind of have to adapt, and we'll talk about that over here. With my cluster phases, from a squat standpoint, I had a 2-week phase, then 2 weeks with weight releasers, and then another arguably would have been a 3-week phase, week 3 being a re-max phase. I had planned on doing like a 3-rep max and some stuff, or maxing my Olympic lifts arguably. And due to life, work, different firehouses, whatnot, I kind of had to dump that. And I didn't get into my first week of contrast training when I wanted to. I kind of had to adapt and kind of just move some things. And I don't do a direct deload anymore. What I tend to do is kind of phase my deload and wave it depending on the weeks. So in week 4 up here in my first phase, I decreased my volume of my accessory lifts. So I went from doing maybe 4 sets or something, 5 sets, 3 sets or something, to all accessories were like 2 sets. And I probably cut the reps down as well. And then the following week, so week 1 of the next phase, my main work deloaded, which is pretty typical. So I personally, on my deload weeks, like to keep my main work still pretty high or heavy. It may be something I toy with in the future as well, and maybe down here, toy with that as well, is cut the volume down on that. I just feel like I like to still train hard. Doesn't mean deloading is not training hard. You have to give your body the breaks you need. So for me, I kind of have to now go with the flow depending on how I'm feeling. Also, really for me, being a fireman full-time as well as part-time, is how my sleep goes. I may get a terrible night of sleep and plan to lift hard the next day, and it's just not going to happen. So I have to kind of bump days around and go with the flow, as well as what equipment I have available at different firehouses. If you follow a lot of my videos, I kind of always am mentioning that. I kind of have to adapt based off where I'm at. And I've had to do a lot more of that this year than I have in the past. Been working more. So that's how that went. And then this got a little in the wash here, the starting of the contrast, as well as the max kind of went away. I didn't really hit a max. I hit a somewhat of a max, a relative max in the Olympic lifts. And then the squat stuff just didn't push. Like I said, deadlift didn't push. Didn't really push the push press either. So I was doing a push press this phase, and now I'm phasing into a jerk for an overhead movement. So in my contrast phase, I'm not doing true French contrast training as it's by the book. I don't follow that. And so I've done a little bit more what I just call contrast training. I've taken kind of principles of both. So for example, I love looking at the squat day. I'm doing squats, a weighted jump, and a body weight jump or an assisted jump. So I'm not doing true French contrast. I wave my main work kind of like a max effort work in that day, like a typical West Side or dynamic effort, max effort day. That's kind of a max effort movement for me. My Olympic lifts, I sometimes am pairing stuff with them to be a contrast, same with deadlift variations, doing some stuff that is more contrast, like jumping with those movements. This whole time, something I've done differently is I'm following an external plyometric program. Trying that out this year. Definitely got me feeling more athletic. We'll see how it translates to throws in the future. So this contrast phase though, kind of very linear. 4 weeks of push before I kind of deload. But for me, I'll pretty much probably go off a feel, and I also use a velocity-based unit to track my speed. And what I do is let that dictate the weight I use on the setup that day. I've had to manipulate, as in this week that I'm recording this video, I was at a firehouse and used weight releasers versus I've been using chains on my main squat work. I had to bump my Olympic lift days around. My Olympic lifts are almost following the cluster settings, but I'm not doing clusters. Those have switched to just 5x2, but I'm probably doing something contrast with that. So 5x2, and those are kind of following a linear pattern. So push those for 4 weeks and then push them again for 3. So I might deload there. I haven't got there yet. I don't follow a set plan, like I said, because I have to make some adjustments based off of how I'm feeling and sleep and whatnot. This day may cut down on volume and just hit the heavy weight in this week. So here I have a planned accessory volume deload. So I may cut all accessories out altogether. But also for me, I like training heavy. I enjoy it and have fun. And so with all this stuff, with training for the Highland Games or any strength sport, make sure you're having fun with your training. So for me, I actually like training heavy. So I may cut the accessory work in that week to be able to still train heavy. And then I'll deload probably a lot this very last week. I might still train. I'll probably drop a lot of weight off. Excuse me. I'll probably drop some weight off that week just altogether. So these last 2 weeks will be the last 2 heavy training weeks with competitions that week. I'll probably cut training depending on travel and stuff like that. Last heavy days will probably be Wednesday. Thursdays I'll still probably try to do something, but it'll be lighter, more dynamic. And this last week we'll deload pretty hard and see what happens with a lot of recovery. In the past, I have not done well with full-on deloads of like doing nothing or doing absolutely minimal. I personally feel like I do better and have shown in competition over a career of doing this that I still do my best if I train somewhat during the week. So let's talk about throwing. So that's kind of gym-related stuff. And as we get closer and closer, I'll tend to cut out a little bit of the other, so slowly cutting out certain accessory work. So all the little bitty stuff I still tend to do or mix in here and there. But lately in this phase through here, I've been doing like my off days are still a 30-minute upper body, try to look good, like pump workout. I might do some extra little cardio, like some walks or this, that, and the other. I'll probably cut that down. Definitely these last 3 weeks, I'll just take those days completely off or do active recovery. Some mobility work is what I'm continuing to do. And if we talk about throwing now, I got off track there. So starting, let's see, I'm in week 9, 10 right now. I think I'm starting week 10. That makes sense. I'm starting week 10. Yes, that's correct. I'm in week 10. And this is the first week I've gone to championship throw practices. So today, for example, was a shot put or stone put day. I gave myself 2 warm-up throws and then 3 full throws. And it was not a good day. My goal is to, when I show up to these games, I might get 2 warm-ups and then 3 throws to make it happen. So that's how I'm shifting my training here. I probably should have done that a week earlier. Is something I would have liked. Really starting my contrast phase, which was bumped kind of, and it's kind of faded. It's not exactly week by week. I would have liked to go ahead and jump right into cutting to the competition throws, cutting my volume down to throw harder. So sometimes I go out and throw and I just go at like 80% effort. Now those 3 comp throws, so 2 warm-ups, 3 comp throws, those 3 are all out. My hammer practice this week, I might take a few more, but I might go all out in those drill throws before. I might do 5 winds and then do the fulls. So kind of a little bit of a mold balance there. Weight over bar, a lot less throws. Get up, throw at the height, move on. Sheath, same thing. Clear height, move on. Not a lot more, not as many repetitions. Back here, and like this whole year has been, I've been up and down with my personal development. If I had to say I was perfectly healthy, I would still been pushing quite a bit of volume with my throws in this cluster phase. And they've shifted. Obviously, as the year goes on, if you go way back up here, it's gonna be a lot more drills involved before you go to full throws. I've always done a lot of full competition style throws, not as many drills, and adjust on the fly with that. But we are cutting down the drill throws and getting into just show up and get the volume, or the short, small volumes in, 5, 6 throws at most, and then move on. So that's kind of what's happening. Less drills, less technique stuff. It's like show up, get in the box and perform, because I have to do that here in these last 3 games. So there's very little that you can focus on. It's like one thing, work on that, move on. So that's what's happening as I move my throws here. So volume in the shot put today was 5 stands and 5 fulls, 6 fulls. Took 1 extra because it wasn't going good. I did 10 wob throws with a sandbag. I did some 1 turns with that sandbag. It's a 30-pound sandbag, it's not heavy. So I was working some drilling today in this throw practice that I had today. And you'll see that if you watch the week recaps. I throw all that and I'll talk through that. So yes, doing a little bit more drilling, but it's trying for me to rehab from an injury and or respond from this injury. I still need my left leg to drive and it's not doing that. So I was literally cueing, like sprinting off my left leg today. So down these couple weeks here, these last 3 weeks, maybe 2 days of throwing at best, because I don't want to injure anything. I don't want to step on a trig and roll an ankle. I don't need to tweak anything. So it is very minimal throws, but hard throws as I get to here compared to up here. These last few weeks, these last 3-4 weeks, honestly, a lot of 80% effort throws, working on some little technique things, trying to make things click again, because timing's been all off for me this year. And yeah, so that's kind of my gist of peaking. And then we'll move on. I'll do a video of kind of what my off season is going to look like. So this is mid-October. So I'll probably do a phase that is October through the end of year through December before we revamp for January, and kind of address what I'm going to do going forward. I know I've talked about putting this video out for a little bit. So if you guys have questions on it, please leave them in the comments. If you listen this far, I know it's definitely been me rambling. But I thought this is something that putting it and showing you what I do, but not giving you exact numbers on stuff. If you want to know exact numbers, get a hold of me and I can share some of that stuff with you. It depends on what you've done and what your background is what's going to work best for you. And I can help you out if you're interested. So sharing some info, pretty simple. If we have to simplify it, lift heavier as you get closer to comps, cut down your volume. Same with your throws, cut your volume down, higher intensity. Pretty simple from a periodization standpoint, but a lot of people don't know how to do this stuff. So hope you guys enjoy this video. It's been long. I've probably talked for over 10 minutes. I got no cool sign off. See y'all.